Joining us now is Ryan Mauro, a national security analyst at the Clarion Project. Ryan, welcome. You saw the video there of the Iranian patrol boat removing the exploded mine from the tanker, and it's really hard to believe that it's just simply a coincidence that the Iranians were there. They probably didn't want different forces like the Americans, let's say, to get there first and see that the mine probably carries some Iranian hallmarks. But is it a good enough evidence, a good enough proof to claim that Iran is behind the attacks? Do you have any doubts?
I have very little doubt. I try never to be 100% convinced of anything, but I'm pretty convinced that this was an Iranian attack because they've been talking about doing this type of thing forever. I mean, as far back as I can remember since studying this, so it's not surprising. And what's also not surprising is the fact that Iran would try to say that this is a false flag and that the Russians would back them and saying that this is a type of U.S. government inside job. They have a strategy of weaponizing our stupidity. They know when they push these conspiracy theories out there, there's a huge portion of the Muslim population around the world and also a significant portion of the American population, people like Alex Jones, that are going to believe it or at least spend all day making the argument that it could be a false flag, setting us up to commit aggression against the Iranian regime.
The Japanese owner of one of the oil tankers that were attacked, he didn't agree with the U.S. military assessment, by the way, that a tanker was struck by a mine. He said that he received reports that it was hit by a projectile. But either way, it seems like it was a sophisticated, well-planned action. Do you necessarily believe it was a state actor?
I think so, especially if it involved divers doing somewhat of a sophisticated tactic, having to go in and then put the mine on the ship, and it's a specific type that is designed not to destroy the vessel, but to just cause enough damage that it can't operate. That speaks of not just capabilities of a state, but the calculations of a state government like Iran that wants to commit a certain level of aggression, but not provoke a response at the same time. So the regime's strategy in that regard is to see how high they can get the price of oil and global trade, because you have to have insurance on these vessels that engage in the shipping, and crack the coalition that's implementing sanctions and really see how much money they can make from their own exports, what little exports they're allowed to do. And it'll get to a point where they'll say, because of the U.S. response, or response from the international community, that this investment in attacking tankers isn't worth it, and then they'll stop. So we're not headed to war.
So here's the question. What could be the repercussions if Iran is indeed behind, if it's proven that Iran is indeed behind these attacks? Do you see the European Union, let's say, and the United Nations siding with the U.S. in the maximum pressure campaign?
If I had to take a guess, I would say especially the political leaders will blame the United States because they disagreed with the Trump administration pulling out of the Iran deal. But does that necessarily mean that they would take the side of the Iranians over ours and other countries in the region? It doesn't necessarily mean that. But the Iranians have some reason to believe that they can crack the coalition implementing sanctions through pressure like this. So there is a certain amount of logic behind what they're doing.
Ryan Mauro, a national security analyst at the Clarion Project, thank you for your time. We appreciate this.